Hey everybody, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kirsten and my husband Mark and I left the United States during the first year of the COVID pandemic and we moved ourselves to Mexico. It was the only place open for travel, so that's where we went. Since that time, we've not only lived in Mexico, but we've also lived in Portugal and we've been in Bangkok, Thailand for the last 2 years. A couple of years ago, I made a video and I talked about 6 things we could surprisingly live without while we were living in Lisbon, Portugal. And I thought I'd do a little update to that video today. One of the many things I've learned about myself in the over 4 years that Mark and I have been living outside of the United States is that I am American through and through. Say what you will about American culture or a lack thereof, but over these last 4 years, I've had a lot of time to contemplate, consider, experience what it's been like being an American living outside of the United States. And I definitely think differently about it now than I did, let's say, 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, even 2 years ago. And I love being American, and I am so thankful to have grown up in the United States. So 6 things we could surprisingly live without back over 2 years ago. In that video, the first thing I talked about that we could surprisingly live without was Amazon Prime. Now, before we left the United States, we were huge Prime folks. The delivery people knew us. We ordered everything off of Amazon for convenience, variety. You could just find whatever you needed. And so I knew I wouldn't be doing as much of that when I moved to Portugal. At that time, I was examining a bit of my consumerism, as is a very popular thing for people to do, especially Americans, when they're moving to Europe. We didn't order very much from Amazon, even though it was available using Amazon Spain or Amazon UK, Amazon Germany. We kind of left that convenience in the rearview mirror while living in Portugal. And now that we're living in Bangkok, I feel like Lazada is my preferred vendor, and it's probably like Amazon Prime on steroids because there's just so much variety, so much to choose from. The deliveries can get here quickly, not only on Lazada, but you can basically order anything online and have it brought to your door rather quickly, especially if you live in central Bangkok. So we're not living without that convenience anymore, even though we were in Portugal. And I got to tell you, I'm not mad at it. The second thing I talked about in that video was American style coffee, drip coffee, and Starbucks. Portugal had a few Starbucks, but most of the coffee in Portugal was espresso style. Coffee shops, local coffee shops mostly sold the Bica, which is in a little espresso. And we loved that coffee. We drank that coffee. We really didn't drink any American style coffee when we were in Portugal. But now that we're here in Bangkok, we are back to drinking our Americano. It's our staple coffee that we go to. The coffee culture here in Bangkok is huge. There's so many different kinds of coffees. There's probably a Starbucks or two in all of the large malls and scattered throughout the city. We don't go to Starbucks. Our preferred coffee chain is Amazon, no pun intended. Cafe Amazon really is our favorite. But again, there's something that we were living without while we lived in Portugal, and here it's available in abundance. Now, these aren't serious things, but it's just interesting how my thought process has changed over the last few years, and it's really nice to be able to have access to the things that I'm used to that give me some comfort, some familiarity. And that's one of the great things about Bangkok, even though it's on the other side of the world. It's such a modern city, equal parts modern and traditional, the best of both worlds. But I'm not having to make very many compromises to live here from my previous life. And that speaks volumes. The third thing I talked about in that video, that something that we could surprisingly live without and that we didn't miss, was our cars and driving. And this is one thing that has changed over the 4 years. Before we left the United States, we loved our cars. We were in that car culture. You drive everywhere, the convenience of driving your own car. We loved it. And we also loved living without our cars. It was nice not to have those car payments, car insurance, maintenance, all the expenses that go along with owning a car definitely add up. Now that we've been away for over 4 years, there are times we definitely miss having a car. Even though we live right in the middle of the city and it's convenient and public transportation is great, it can get you anywhere. Having a car, just being able to get in your car and drive somewhere, we do miss that independence and that sense of freedom. And we also wonder what it would be like, or well, I wonder what it would be like if we actually had a car, because now we have so much free time. While I was working, it was work and home, maybe something fun on the weekends. But now the options as far as time go are endless, but we're limited because we don't have our own car. Sure, we could rent one when we wanted to do something that required a car. We could also hire a driver if we wanted to go somewhere and didn't want to drive there. But just that car ownership piece, we do miss that. The fourth thing I talked about in that video was Charmin toilet paper. And I think I mentioned it in that video because I can't believe, as a nation, as Americans, we were socialized to worship Charmin toilet tissue. It's toilet tissue. But you know how we all were, especially during the pandemic, when you couldn't find any TP on the shelves. And when you found some, it was, oh. And if you found Charmin, especially the Charmin Blue, not the Charmin Red, oh my goodness, it was like eureka. Okay, we don't miss Charmin. TP is TP, especially when you use the bidet or a bum gun. And the Charmin toilet tissue is definitely something we can live without, and we're not surprised that we can. The next thing I talked about in that video, something we surprisingly could live without, was Mexican food. Now, if you know us, we're from San Diego. We love our Mexican food. I mean, I could eat a bean and cheese burrito from Cotijan every day. No problem. Mexican food was just our familiar food. It was our everyday food. We grew up on the border between Mexico and the United States. The good news is, in Bangkok, it's fairly easy to find decent Mexican food. When we first arrived here from Portugal, we ate quite a bit of Mexican food. Now, we've since backed off of that. It's nice to find it if we want it, but really, we're doing just fine without it. The final thing I talked about in that video, something that we could surprisingly live without doing, was eating out often. Now, before we left the United States, we used to eat out all the time. I did not cook. I know how to cook, but I just didn't cook. It was our habit to pretty much eat out, I would probably say 5 of 7 days during the week. And once we moved to Portugal, I had time. I started cooking. There wasn't really the variety of restaurants that we were used to, and we really just enjoyed eating at home. Now, here in Bangkok, we have every kind of restaurant under the sun you can imagine. And so, of course, when we first arrived here, we ate out all the time. And we kind of still do, I guess, but I am trying to cook a little bit more. So when I look back at those 6 things, Amazon Prime, American style coffee in Starbucks, driving a car, Charmin toilet paper, Mexican food, and eating out often, surprisingly, all of those things are pretty much readily available here in Bangkok. And when I think about it, I just think I made that video because the things that I was talking about, maybe I was missing at the time. I mean, they weren't really available where we were, and they were probably some familiar, tongue-in-cheek things, but familiar things. And I was probably missing them, but telling myself it was okay, we can live without them. But I think my overall point to this video is here in Bangkok, we're not really missing anything. Interestingly enough, the things we had to learn to live without while living in Portugal are here in abundance in Bangkok. Like I said, I have learned, being away from the United States for over the last 4 years, that I am American through and through. I like my conveniences. I like my shopping. I like my consumerism to a certain extent. And coming here to Bangkok, I didn't have to compromise any of those things. And really, it's just been wonderful. So let me know what you think about this video. What are some of the things that you think you would have a hard time living without if you were moving to Thailand or to Bangkok specifically? I'm interested to hear. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.